Chelmsford's Queer Heritage, an Incomplete Timeline. Chelmsford Creatives are a group of young people who work with the city's museum to help make the stories it tells more representative of Chelmsford's community. We have been researching Chelmsford's history and significant figures to uncover hidden queer and LGBTQ+ stories of our city's past and present. Most people don't know that our city has a rich history of queerness stretching back to 122 AD. Whilst we can't project modern values onto ancient behaviours, same-sex relationships were common in the Roman Empire. Emperor Hadrian is reported to have had a close relationship with a young Greek man, Antinous. They travelled extensively together, and when Antinous died, Hadrian was so devastated he had him recognised as a god and founded a cult to worship Antinous. Hadrian visited Chelmsford in 122 AD. A mansio was built in Walsham before his arrival, which meant Chelmsford played an important role in the empire's communication system and marked the beginning of the town. Thomas Bolton and Frederick Park were a theatrical double act and Victorian cross-dressers, who went by the names Fanny and Stella. In 1870, the pair were performing in Chelmsford and commissioned a series of portraits with local photographer Fred Spalding. The pair attracted attention when they began visiting theatres as female patrons and were accused of homosexual offences in 1871. Fortunately, prosecutors had no hard evidence, and so they were found not guilty. Almost 100 years later, homosexual acts were partly decriminalised in England and Wales in 1967. Grace Chapelleau was a suffragette who lived in Hatfield Peveril, just outside Chelmsford. Grace was dedicated to the cause, and in 1912 was sentenced to 2 months in prison for smashing the windows of the Mayor of London's house. Grace allegedly rejected men and never married, choosing to live with a female friend for over 30 years. She was also close friends with Zoe Proctor and Dorothea Rock, who lived together. When they both died, they left a significant sum to Grace. However, we can't know the exact details of Grace's relationships, as she insisted her housemate burnt all her written correspondence upon her death in 1971. Jack McNamara was a military officer and MP for Chelmsford from 1935 to 1944. Pre-World War II, his life involved international sex tours, Soviet espionage, and trips to Germany as part of the Anglo-German Fellowship. After seeing the violence against gay men and Jewish people in concentration camps, Jack vocally opposed anti-Semitism and appeasement. Jack was Joint Secretary of the Basque Children's Committee, responsible for supporting 4,000 refugees displaced by the Spanish Civil War. Jack and several other gay and bisexual MPs were nicknamed the Glamour Boys by their peers. Jack desperately wanted to fight in the war and was killed by a German attack whilst in Italy in 1944. The UK Gay Liberation Front started in 1970, prompted by the US movement in response to the 1969 Stonewall riots. The UK GLF hosted weekly meetings of 200 to 300 people, created their own manifesto, and by 1971, the national press recognised the GLF as a political movement. By 1972, there were 29 local and regional groups outside London, including Chelmsford GLF. The Army and Navy was an iconic late-night music venue in Chelmsford for decades. In 1992, the pub launched Chelmsford's first ever LGBTQ+ weekly club night on Sundays. The events were so popular they drew crowds from across Essex, and were shortly rolled out to Sundays and Wednesdays. The significance of the pub to Essex's community is commemorated every year by the Army and Navy stage at Essex Pride. The pub's gay nights, reportedly, what kept the venue financially afloat for so long, before it closed in 2002. The Druitt-Barlow family became a significant part of the UK's history when their twins became the first British children to be registered with 2 fathers and no mother. As they lived in Danbury, Tony and Barry first looked at adoption through Essex Social Services, but same-sex couple adoption was not legal at the time. The couple paid for a surrogate in the USA and now have 5 children together. Same-sex couple adoption legislation came into effect in 2005, but British legislation didn't allow 2 men to be named as parents on a birth certificate until 2010. Inspired by other cities' pride events, local Chelmsford residents decided to organise the first Chelmsford Gay Day. The event was a collaboration between Smith's, Wheatsheaf, and Chicago's, 3 venues which were significant to the local LGBTQ+ community at the time. It was an immediate success, and the event's attendance grew over the years, along with the wider community support for the annual celebration of LGBTQ+ Pride. In 2008, the event was reimagined as Chelmsford Pride and eventually became Essex Pride. Grayson Perry is a well-known contemporary artist and winner of the 2003 Turner Prize. Perry was born in Chelmsford and was kicked out when his dad discovered he was leaving the house dressed as a woman. Grayson Perry started self-identifying as a transvestite in his teens and refers to his female alter ego as Claire. He has produced several documentaries that explore masculinity and frequently examines class, politics, and identity through his artwork. By 2009, Essex Pride had cemented itself as a celebration for the whole community, attracting thousands of visitors from across the country. Increased sponsorship meant the event was moved to Central Park and was open to under-18s for the first time. Essex Pride is the largest celebration of LGBTQ+ life in Essex, and is still as important today as it was in 2003. Despite Chelmsford's diverse and accepting community, homophobia and hate crime are still very current. Essex Pride continues to be a space for the LGBTQ+ community and allies to come together and reflect on how far we've come and acknowledge how much more work there still is to do.